The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. A sunny day here in Southern California. We have 1 week of football left, and then the football season is over. Normally this would make me sad, but we're heading toward eventually an 18-week football season and then 4 playoff rounds. So really football is eventually going to take over all of our lives, and one person is happy about that on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline right now. Cousin Sal, what's happening?
Well, hold on. Let me correct you. We are heading towards a 0-week football season next year, and I'm very depressed about all this.
I forgot about that.
Sorry.
I still feel like it's going to work out. They're going to figure out there's too much money at stake. Anytime there's this much money at stake, it's got to be figured out.
Well, hold on. Were they playing for Beanie Babies in the mid-'80s when they went on strike? I mean, there's always money involved, right?
Not this much, though. It's like cajillions of dollars. Like, really? You're going to...
I know.
I don't know.
I'm trying not to think about it, but I mean, just normally I go through stages of depression. I think you do the same. Like when your team is knocked out of it, which for the Cowboys was sometime around week 2.5.
Right.
And then, when your fantasy team is out of it, and then when, like yesterday, it hit me hard in the morning, and I texted you. I'm like, I just realized I don't even care about these games. I'm depressed. This is the last day you can make a 2-team teaser, and without using like the over/under. So.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm fully depressed.
Well, I think the one reason that I'm not as depressed as I normally would be is because the NBA season has been so good this year. Normally the NBA regular season is terrible, or, you don't really have to concentrate until March. And this year it's like every night there's a good game. So I'm already in that mode. College basketball, I got to figure out. I know football. Well, maybe I have too much faith about this lockout thing. You're right. I should be more depressed.
Come on, let's be depressed together.
All right, let's be. Well, we were depressed yesterday because I'll just set the table for people. So the 2 best value bets that we thought for futures are bets that you make ahead of time, like for MVP, Super Bowl, division, whatever. We both thought Pittsburgh and Green Bay were severely undervalued. We put in multiple big bets, trying to capture our sentiments for that, and somehow we're going to lose money. Explain how that happened.
I don't know. I can't explain it. I was up all night trying to figure out how it happened. I think it was like week 4, we took Pittsburgh, and this is when they were 3-0 without Roethlisberger or something around that.
No, we did it. It was week 2. They were I think 1-1 or 2-0 or something.
They hadn't lost until Baltimore. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So they were 2-0.
So we got 12-1 odds, and all right. So now, but for some reason, and then we took the Packers. We love the Packers to win the division, and Aaron Rodgers as MVP, but didn't take them to win the Super Bowl. All right. So we have the Steelers winning the Super Bowl. We have the Packers winning the NFC North, and Aaron Rodgers winning MVP. Neither of which happened or will happen. And now we hedge. Pittsburgh plays the Jets, and we're getting points. Like, oh, this is great. We're going to get like we'd ever catch a middle in the playoffs. Like the Steelers would win by 3, and we'd win both. No, so now we already lost some of our Steelers winnings, provided they win the Super Bowl, which they're probably not going to. So.
Right. So in August, we decide we both really like the Packers.
Yeah.
We're in on the Packers. The Packers are going to make the Super Bowl. So we look at it. Their Super Bowl odds aren't that great. And
like 7-1. It wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't good. So we were like, well, we'll bet Rodgers MVP. So he was like 12-1. We had a nice bet on that. And then we did Packers to win the division, which we felt like, there's no question they're the best team in this division. We both thought Minnesota was going to tank.
I still have the email, too, from you, because I was looking through all these emails, and it's like, this is a lock, and I agreed with you. Packers, worst comes to worst, we'll bet against it. The Bears maybe in week 16 or 17 when you get a chance.
No, we didn't ever had a chance. And then somehow, because I have two young kids that wake up early every day, and now they've given me brain damage. At some point around week 7, I thought I had the Packers to win the Super Bowl, and I was cruising along with Packers Steelers, and then you reminded me about week 15. The Packers lost to who? They lost to the Lions when we were in Dallas.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's
Rodgers gets hurt.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, that sucks for our division bet. And I'm like, what do you mean? I thought we had them to win the Super Bowl. And I'm confused. And so we had this division bet that we never went against that we lost. Then we had this giant Pittsburgh bet that was a brilliant bet. It was one of our best bets ever.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot. It's there's not a Mount Rushmore of great Sal Simmons
shot
bets.
Right to the top of the list immediately.
Yeah. We had it during the Charlie Batch era. People, Pittsburgh's banged up. Everybody's discounting them. People were more excited about other teams. We jumped right in. I even wrote about it in my Week 3 football column. I was like, This is the best bet. I can't believe the odds aren't better for this.
Mm-hmm.
So we ride that. All of a sudden now we have the Steelers 12-1. The Pats get knocked out.
Yeah.
This is great. Jets, plus 3.5. It's going to be a close game. And then, the Jets have 4 chances from the 1-yard line, basically.
That's too much. Yeah.
They don't get in, and they lose by 5. I thought we were going to middle that. I thought that was going to be one of our best bets ever.
I thought so, too. It was looking really I was nervous and excited. And can I add the one last and final looming bet we have?
Sure.
AFC minus 1.5 to win the Super Bowl.
Another brilliant bet.
We did this. We loved it. We're like, this is going to – and we did. It shot up to 3 or 4, within 10 days. I'm like, I feel like Michael Douglas here on Wall Street. This is great. We just bought 3 points without even blinking, and I checked it as a winner when the Browns blew out the Saints in New Orleans. I was like, we're winning this bet. How are we going to lose it? And now the Packers are favored in the Super Bowl.
It's awesome.
I won't say more than that because we still have to guess and whatever. But
so we've already lost 1/3 of our Pittsburgh winnings by yesterday's Jets hedge. So we have 2/3 left of our winnings plus the initial bet. And then on top of that, we have the AFC, who is now somehow, even though a week ago or 10 days ago, it looked like the Pats would be favored by 7 against anybody against the NFC.
I think there were 8 scenarios, and 7 of them the AFC would have been favored going into the playoffs.
Right. So now the AFC is getting points. There's really no conceivable way for us to hedge.
No.
We just have to ride it out at this point and root for Pittsburgh, who is now missing their left tackle, center, and right tackle. Do you think B.J. Raji is going to have a fun time against whoever the backup to the backup Steelers center is? What are they on, their 9th backup?
I already have 750 on B.J. Raji to score the first touchdown, 75-1. So I think we're looking good. You have to jump on that with me.
I couldn't believe the Steelers. They lose Pouncey. First of all, the announcers, Nance and Sims, who did not have a strong day because they were the only 2 people in the country, including my wife, who didn't realize that Sanchez's fumble or an interception, whatever happened, it went backwards. So either way, it was Jets' ball.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, Steelers' ball.
Everyone's concerned about the arm, which way the arm's going.
10 minutes of replays, and everybody on the planet knows that the ball went backwards. But so Pouncey goes out early on what was it, the first drive?
No, I think it was a little.
It was in the first quarter.
Yeah, first quarter, yeah.
And they don't have the left tackle, and they don't have the right tackle. And last week in their playoff game, some guy came in, and the announcer said they literally have no more offensive linemen.
Yeah.
It just felt like this was a momentum-shifting injury, and they're that's too bad. They lost Pouncey. And
this is precisely why I picked the Jets plus 3.5. I'm like, even if these guys end up playing, it's laughable. They play 3 drives. Every 3 drives, a different offensive lineman goes out.
Yeah.
Eventually, even Roethlisberger can't scramble to a victory.
So Mendenhall, behind this patchwork backup UFL offensive line, has the best day of his life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I've stopped trying to figure this stuff out, Sal.
But then falls apart in the second half. Then can't do anything. Like he had 22 carries midway through the third quarter. I'm like, he must be getting tired. But have you ever seen a defensive line or linebackers step up after getting just run all over like that? I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen it. I can't believe the Jets fought back in that game. Just couldn't believe it.
And so 24-10. They go down, basically first and goal from I think the 4 or 5. They run a play. They get to the 2, 2nd and 2. Sanchez can't hear the offensive coordinator. Runs over to the sideline. At this point, you call timeout.
Yeah.
I don't think any play has ever worked when the quarterback has to sprint over to the sideline to hear the play. So he comes back. They run a terrible play that Keller drops.
Right.
3rd down. I don't even know what that play was. The quick slant right into James Farrier's helmet, basically, or whoever's the one who blocked that. That was awful. And then fourth down, they go to Tomlinson, who was awful the whole game.
It was a terrible job by Schottenheimer.
It was awful. I mean, that was the game.
We have two plays that work from the one almost all the time, right? With the tight end falling down, you could add Keller, that's yours.
Yeah.
Like that, where he pretends to fall down, then he's open in the flat. Or I just like the bootleg, which we saw Aaron Rodgers do earlier in the day yesterday.
The naked, Grogan, the Steve Grogan, Steve DeBerg.
Yeah.
I like the tight end either fakes the fall down or just pretends to block for 5 minutes and then cuts out at the last possible second. We saw that play happen twice in the Auburn-Oregon game, and both times for either touchdowns or 2 points or whatever. And for some reason, the Jets did not dip into the playbook for that one. But
something's happening to these coaches, these head coaches. I think, you know how like in the beginning of the fourth quarter, the NBA stars will take off for a few minutes and so they can come back strong for the end.
Yeah,
I think NFL coaches are doing it too, because it looked like Ryan was doing the same thing Belichick did with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, just so nonchalant, not getting the plays in, like you said, just running the play clock down to 3 when they do get the plays in. I don't get what's going on. Give yourself some time. And then, of course, they ran out of time at the end.
We've seen the death of the 2-minute drill in these playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna write a column about the last two games, but if I did, that would have been one of the topics. Is like, what happened to the days of what happened to like the days of Peyton Manning just racing down the field and scoring on 5 plays, 70 yards, and they're back in the game. Wow, that was fast.
Yeah.
These games now, and I guess maybe the defenses are they're just playing so far back. You just have to take the 7 yards a pop. But I don't understand why it takes 40 seconds to run a play.
I don't either. And then on the other side, just the gutsy play calling by the Steelers.
Yep.
Give them too much credit, but Big Ben rolling right on 3rd and 6, hitting Antonio Brown. Like, what huge stones he has for running that play. I mean, his balls could fill in that offensive line in 2 weeks. That big for running that play.
Well, and the other second down.
Minute 20 left. They'll have it deep in their own territory, but they would give him a free pass. So.
Well, then the previous first down that they got, they did the same thing on second down. They ran the pass to Heath Miller. Right?
Miller, right.
Yeah. Both of those, we always get mad when teams don't do that, but I guess you need a quarterback like Roethlisberger to really feel good about doing that. I thought he was spectacular in that game.
He was, and that is a 1 point Sims made. Like, forget the stats. These two guys, Roethlisberger and Sanchez, especially Roethlisberger, despite the 2 interceptions, just I don't know where he gets it from. I really don't. So gutsy. And, I heard 3 times last night, and then I shut the TV. I had enough. I heard 3 say what you will about Ben Roethlisberger as a human being last night.
Yeah, no.
Followed by he played a spectacular game. I think we get it already. We could say what we will about Ben Roethlisberger.
Say what you will is never a good opener to say anything about anybody. Like, if you say that about a family member, like, I don't know, Uncle Frank. Say what you will about Uncle Frank, but, it's kind of insulting.
On Christmas, yeah, I know.
But you look at those 2 games that Pittsburgh won. They beat Baltimore barely. Mm-hmm. I feel like even though that game was a blowout a little bit, that Jets game, if it was 5 quarters, I think the Jets win. It's kind of a stupid comment, but man.
I don't know. It depends how long Rex Ryan holds the ball for the next drive, but maybe 6 or 7 quarters.
So you could say the Steelers got by in those 2 rounds because of the home field, because of Roethlisberger, because they made a couple big plays when it mattered. Now they're going to a neutral field to play the Packers, who are, who have not been healthy, but haven't really had an injury in a while. And meanwhile, it looks like the Steelers just losing guys left and right.
Well, it's a nice matchup, but and I don't want to say both these teams backed into the Super Bowl, but what were they outscored in the second half? Like 30-7? It was like 16-0 Steelers were outscored.
Yeah.
14. Yeah, like 30-7. So
usually in the conference title games, you feel like the team that's going to the Super Bowl really like laid the smack down or showed a cut. Yeah, they showed them, and both of these teams kind of, I don't want to say they backed in, but they definitely it was a little hairy for each side.
You could say they were 2 helmet-to-helmet calls away from maybe not being in this game.
Yeah,
it was that close.
Well, before we get to the Super Bowl line, let's talk about the single worst play call of the weekend and one of the 10 worst of all time. Mike Martz, that 21-14, 3rd and 3.
Yeah. reverse.
I guess it's a reverse. I mean, it was
End around,
end around to Earl Bennett, who was probably their slowest guy out of their the three best receivers.
Yeah.
It was one of those plays, even as it was starting, we're like, oh, no, they're not going to do that, are they? And then they did it. That was horrible.
Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad. And I just thought the Bears didn't – I mean, the Packers gave them every chance to be in that game. And they're passing up 49-yard field goals and I guess 52-yard field goal, down 14-0 forever. Like, what exactly is your plan to win this game at this point, you know?
Yeah, the McCarthy – it was a very similar game to the Philly game 2 weeks before, where they played better. They should have put the game away early. They didn't. They let the team hang around. And then all of a sudden the team's driving for – in Philly it would have been the winning score. In this game it was the tying score.
Yeah.
But I really thought the Bears were going to at least send it into overtime.
I thought too, and I was like you. I had the Packers, but I'm like, wow, this would be some. I don't even know. I was watching with a bunch of Bears fans. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm watching right now. Third string comes in and he's completing passes. It was amazing. I
tweeted that it would have been one of the greatest playoff wins ever, and people are like, what are you talking about? This game's awful. Just think of this scenario.
Yeah.
You're in Chicago. You're scoreless. Your quarterback is just standing on the sidelines. You don't know how hurt he is. The backup comes in, and he's so atrocious they have to take him out.
Yeah.
And they take him out so that he's eliminated for the rest of the game. So now it's like the only quarterback they have left is this guy nobody's ever heard of. He's got a porn mustache. I've seriously never heard of that guy. And I consider myself in the top 1% of football fans in the country, and I've never heard of that guy ever.
I was furiously Googling him as he was warming up on the sideline, but I hadn't heard of him either.
So they get it.
Go ahead. But, I mean, you say you hadn't heard of him, but you've more than made up for it with the phone call you left me after the game.
I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I didn't think you could hear that at the bar.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, I stepped out for a second. So hold on. Let me get it. Let me see if I have it here.
Cousin Sal, I got some terrible news. Josh Freeman and I broke up. First JWoww and Tom, now us. What a week. Finish. Kaput. Us Weekly already has a picture of us with a tear going down the middle. I had to let him go. I found out he was having an affair with Brody Jenner of The Hills, my favorite TV show on earth. Talk about adding insult to injury. That's all right, though. I turned on the trade machine Picasso and ended up with a new boyfriend. His name is Caleb Haney. Let me check that. Caleb Haney, the third-string quarterback for the Bears, and we are in love. And you can read all about our romantic trials and tribulations in my new book, Sports Guy's Colossal Book of Basketball and Fake Relationships with Crap Bad Quarterbacks, now available on paperback. Move over, Rachel, you can tell. Sports Guy's addicted to love. Con!
Yeah, that's pretty fired up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your new boyfriend.
Well, I'll tell you.
Quite great.
Did you know that I wouldn't have noticed this except my friend Jen Morris from college. She noticed that Caleb Haney, after the game, shaved his mustache.
Did he really?
He gave interviews afterwards, and he no longer had the mustache.
You sure it didn't accidentally get burned off when they were torching Cutler's jersey?
That might have been it. But how about, like, I'm going to keep this porn mustache. I'm not going to play. I'm the third-string quarterback.
Yeah.
Or, like, one of my buddies bet me that if they showed me in the sidelines, I wouldn't have a porn mustache. I'm going to make $20. So then he plays, and he's like, oh, God, I got to shave this thing. I thought that was pretty funny.
I'm not even going to shower. They're not going to show me. I'm in the crowd. They're not going to show me on TV. That's funny.
But if they had come back and they had won that game at home against this team that was much better than them with their third-string quarterback and not to mention NFC Central, NFC North rival, that's one of the top 5 playoff wins ever if you're just judging it by would I have wanted to be in the stands as this was happening.
Right. Phenomenal.
Like you'd have to, like Frank Reich, that game I think is up there. If you're one of the 8 Bronco fans who was at the Elway, the Drive game, I think the Tuck Rule Patriots game, because it was a blizzard. My biggest sports fan regret in life is that I decided not to go to that game. I'll never forgive myself for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's certain games that are just like, man, imagine what it would have been like to be there. And if they had come back and beaten the Packers, I think that would have been incredible.
That's right up there. And conversely, it was probably after the first half, you would have said, oh man, this is the worst game for a Bears fan.
Yeah.
I can't do anything. And now it seems like Cutler has a torn MCL or something, but.
Yeah, I mean, he knew he was hurt because if it was just like, somebody bumped my knee, it's bruised. You can't even go back to the team after that.
I was hoping he would say he was afraid to go back in, and then we could use chicken cutler, which I don't think has been used yet.
Nice.
How do you like your chicken cutler prepared?
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, Heath Evans was on a radio show today and said that Drew Brees played with a torn MCL for the whole season.
Oh, yeah?
Would have been nice to have known that. I love how these guys have injuries, and they're contractually obligated to reveal what the injuries are.
Yeah.
And yet, Drew Brees had a torn MCL, allegedly, according to Heath Evans, who's on the team. And I didn't see that in any injury reports.
I think that's a smart thing to do. You just pay your buddy, even like a fourth stringer who nobody knows, like you just pay him $25,000 in the beginning of the season and say, hey, I want you to come out and tell everyone I have a torn MCL, all right?
Yeah.
Wait till after I lost in devastating fashion. So.
Well, that's what Brady, every year they say Brady has a weird shoulder on the injury report, and it's been the same shoulder injury for 10 years.
Every week you're like, hey, don't say anything, but Brady's got it. Brady did this, Brady did that.
Well, he did. I told you about the stress fracture.
I know.
And he had it.
I don't know when they should say something and when they should, and we shouldn't. But there's a lot of fantasy and a lot of money being thrown around gambling, so I think we should know. Let's
talk about the line.
Yeah.
No drama here because you and I both guessed the same thing. Packers by 2.5.
Both said 2.5. As of this morning, it is 2.5, which means I win the year-long contest on a tiebreaker. Oof, that was close.
No, you didn't.
No. Okay, you won. But how about we both picked 2.5? That's nice. That's like studying for a final exam for 20 weeks and acing it, right?
It felt good. I'm not going to lie. It didn't soften the blow of the Jets somehow not middling that game, but it was the right line because it didn't feel quite like 3.
No, it didn't. But on the other hand, and I think I've had the favorite in every Super Bowl since we've known each other. The Bucs over the Raiders was the last dog that I liked, and I'm not sure about this one. I mean, should the Packers be favored? They're a 6th seed. Many of the Steelers have been there before. Is it all about the turf and the offensive line? Maybe that is the point difference.
I think that, obviously we're going to have 2 weeks to talk about this game, but I don't totally trust the Packers with some of the stuff they do during these games. It just feels like they let other teams hang around, and you can't let Roethlisberger hang around. And I think Pittsburgh's well coached. They don't make a lot of mistakes. It just seems like it's a game where they're dying for you to take Green Bay.
Yeah.
Because of the injuries on Pittsburgh's side and all this stuff. But then as you're watching the game as it happens, and you're thinking, God, it's like yesterday when we hedged the Jets pick, and I'm thinking, why do we hedge against Roethlisberger at home?
Yeah.
We should have just ridden this. Like they weren't going to lose at home with Roethlisberger.
Yeah. Pretty dumb.
But
I think from a gambler standpoint, and people will bet it because it's a Super Bowl, but a little gun shy, I think, because both these teams showed that they have trouble closing, Even the Packers, but they should be all right on that turn. And I have to see the offensive line situation. This is just getting silly after a while.
Well, when you think about it's going to be an advantage for Rodgers because, as we talked about last week, it feels like this Packers team might be more suited to be a dome team because they're so fast.
Right.
But then you think about that stadium that we went to last year.
Yeah.
That I just think this game's going to – my prediction is that the game will be better than the weekend in Dallas.
The game is better than the weekend – the weekend we spent?
No. Normally with the Super Bowl, the weekend is always – like just going there and going all the stuff and being there, that's always more fun, and you just kind of hope the game's good. Mm-hmm. I think this game's going to be awesome, and – you got two fan bases that travel really well, as people keep saying now. You got an awesome stadium with that giant TV. It's in Dallas. Like, basically, these are the 3 signature franchises of the last 50 years that are involved in this game and somehow.
Right.
It would be really hard for me to believe that with all this stuff in play that this would end up being like a 34-10 blowout.
Right. In other words, terrorists, stay the F away. Well, let's have fun with this one. You could hit it next year when there's no Super Bowl.
All right. Can you name all of the lines in Super Bowl history that were 3 points or less?
Oh, I don't think so. I know the Giants-Ravens was – how many are there?
I'm going to go through them right now.
But just tell me how many – oh, go ahead.
2001, Ravens -3, Giants.
Right. I remember that one.
That was my greatest gambling Super Bowl ever. It was like I was the bishop in Caddyshack for that Super Bowl.
That was nice.
Denver, 1988. We have to go back now from 2001 to 1988.
Mm-hmm.
Denver favored by 3 against the Washington Redskins. That did not go well for Denver.
Right. I think they were up a couple touchdowns and then just fell apart. Right?
Then we had this amazing run. 1983, Miami favored by 3 over the Redskins.
Mm-hmm.
Redskins won. The year before, San Fran favored by 1 against Cincy.
Mm-hmm. San
Fran wins on the last drive.
Right.
The year before that, Oakland getting 3 points against Philly. They cover. And then you have to go back to 1975, Pittsburgh giving 3 to Minnesota, the Lynn Swan game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last 2, 1973, Miami favored by 1 over the Redskins. They win, but that was the Garo Yepremian game. Nobody remembers anything else that happened. And then Super Bowl V, 1971, Baltimore, -2.5 over Dallas, and they win on the last field goal and covered by a half point. Some say the greatest.
I don't remember reading about that at all.
Yeah, some say one of the great Super Bowl gambling moments ever.
Yeah, still have O'Brien's face in my dartboard right in the middle. Yeah, that was supposed to be big.
I would say the greatest Super Bowl gambling moment ever was obviously the Jets' 18-point underdogs beating Baltimore.
Yes, I think so. That gives anyone any glimmer of hope that result. That was so big. And plus with the AFL, NFL, that was huge for the time.
The number 2 and number 3 in some order would be the Pats, 14-point underdogs beating St. Louis, and then the Giants plus 12
that was big.
Beating.
But I mean, you're just talking like that. These didn't come down to the last second, but there have been some that the spread has come down. I remember
Jackie Smith.
Kelly driving against the Cowboys to cover and like them stopping them when the game was in Atlanta. And an underrated one is when who was the Titans? Was it Mason tackled at the 1?
Yep.
Against the Rams.
Rams are favored by 7.
I think it was a push, so everyone you probably just pushed on your bet, but that was big.
But if he hadn't got tackled, it goes to overtime. We have the first overtime Super Bowl ever, and then also there's no way the Rams cover.
Mm-hmm. That would be a good way to test the new overtime system. There's one game. There's a few of them that were headed that way, but if this game went into overtime, that would be spectacular.
What's amazing is that the Packers pushed against the Pats in 1997.
Yeah, 13, right?
And then 4 years later, the Rams pushed again against Tennessee. We had 2 pushes in 4 years on fairly high lines. But if you look at the history of, it's usually 7 or 4 or 3, or then it gets double digits. We rarely see the under 3. We've only seen it 4 times.
I don't know how you enforce this, but no, there should be no pushes on the Super Bowl. It's the last one. You can't walk away from this game shrugging your shoulders. They should make everything a half point or even a quarter point, just in case. Well,
that's what I'm worried about with this line. I hope it stays at 2.5, but I have a feeling it's going to creep to 3.
Yeah.
Because I think once it comes out that Pouncey's not going to play, let's assume he's not going to play, right?
Right.
Then I think just people all week talking about BJ Raji just killing their line, and oh my God, this guy Roethlisberger is going to be fighting for his life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it settles at 3.
I could see it going to 3.
You want a week to think about your pick? Because we're going to call you next week.
I'll come back next Monday. I'll have some real props that we should go over and some fake ones that we could just dismiss immediately.
That's, by the way, one of my favorite podcasts to do every year.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
We're going to go through all the Super Bowl props, all of them.
Let's do it.
Everyone. We're just going to write 60 pages. We're just going to read them all. And
7.5 hours. And some people think it should be put in one podcast, but you have to break it up in 55-minute increments, right?
One question, though.
Yeah.
If you had to bet right now on who's going to score the first TD, which is a bet that really separates those of us who have gambling problems for those who don't, it's a terrible bet.
It's bad.
It's really bad, and nobody ever wins it. I've only won it once in my whole life, but yet I do it every year. If you had to pick somebody to score the first TD, who would it be?
I'm going Greg Jennings, and it'd probably be like 7-1.
Greg Jennings, interesting.
Nothing great, but let me just tell you real quick. Yesterday, I didn't have that much on it, but I just playing around. At Jordy Nelson at 15-1, tackled at the 2.
Oh.
And I had Heath Miller also not even tackled at the 2. made a catch and just forgot to roll into the end zone. Remember that? And they ended up redoing it, and he caught it and everything. So, good times.
So maybe we should just stop.
No.
Oh, okay.
Heaven forbid. No.
Anything to plug?
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel Live. Joan Rivers is on tonight. Anthony Hopkins later in the week. Hallie Steinfeld from True Grit. Amy Poehler, Ryan Seacrest, Melissa Leo from The Fighter. What a week. And also want to promote my website. Actually, I don't have one, but I want to promote the fact that I'm considering starting one. It could be big, so keep in touch.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. No, I'm just considering having one, so I like to promote that.
Okay, one last thing before you go.
Go ahead.
We've been talking about MVP bets for the NBA.
Yeah.
We have Kevin Durant currently. We have a sizable wager on him.
I'm just completely blindly following you on this. I mean, I've been watching, but I don't know how they do MVP anymore.
So we have him at, I think, plus 250.
5-2, yeah.
His odds have remained plus 250. They have not budged.
Mm-hmm. And the guys around him haven't really, but right? No one's really creeping up, are they?
Amari is plus 250.
Oh, he is? So it's tied now.
Yeah, see, Amari's not going to win, though. Like, that's the dumbest one, so cross him off.
All right.
Chris Paul is plus 500, and we have a slight hedge on him, but I don't know. I don't – like, if it's him versus Derrick Rose is going to win. I think Derrick Rose is the MVP right now. The other guy I would be worried about is Dwight Howard, who's plus 600. Derrick Rose is plus 300.
Right.
Do we hedge?
LeBron, even though the odds are low, I think he's like 5-1 or something. He doesn't have a chance, right?
Well, he does have a chance because if you look at his January numbers, he was averaging 32 a game.
Yeah, well, who votes for this anyway? It seems like guys hate him anyway. Whoever.
Yeah, that's the thing. So writers vote for it, and they're all going to try to stick it to him. Nobody's going to vote for him.
Right.
So in my opinion, this comes down to Derrick Rose versus Durant, because if Oklahoma City, I think they're going to come on if they win 60 games. Mm-hmm. You know, we could see Durant all of a sudden. And he hit a game winner. He's been playing great this month. And the only other one I could see potentially is Dwight Howard at plus 600.
Well, let's not hedge. Let's stop the hedging for a while.
I think that's what my point was.
Right.
Let's just ride Durant. I'm tired of hedging, and then I have all these different things, and we lose. So
let's ride Durant. I think we have him for the points title, too. He just can't get hurt. And, you know, for anyone listening, you know what this means. Put big money on Derrick Rose.
Let's make 2011 our we're not hedging anymore year.
I like it. Let's do it.
No more hedges in 2011. All right, Cousin Sal, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, buddy. Good job, Billy.
Good job by you. All right, we're not doing a megapod today because we're going to wait for next week for that. But we did want to have this guy on because you're used to him on Mondays from the NFL Network, and he was in Pittsburgh yesterday, and now he's on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Mike Lombardi, what's happening?
Not much, Bill. Good to be back. A little chilly, but it's good.
So when we had you on last Monday, you made you gave your expertise, and then you went and you watched football tapes for 3 days at the NFL headquarters, and by Friday, you'd kind of change your opinion a little bit. So we should remind people that after you listen to Lombardi on Monday, read his Friday column because that's when he's watched all the tapes. So what did you see last week that made you change your picks?
Well, I was really, when you go back and study the tape, let's take Steelers-Jets. The first game, the Steelers did a really good job of blocking the Jets, and they were able to move the football on them. And they had 370 yards of offense, and to me, the more I studied it, the more I saw that they were going to be able to move the football on the Jets. And Mike Wallace was open against Cromartie, and the only way really Cromartie was going to cover him if he grabbed him and dragged him down. Now, Wallace didn't have a big game, but I thought Wallace would be a factor, and I thought Emmanuel Sanders would be when I watched the tape. And then, of course, Ben moving around the pocket. So, to me, when I watched it, I thought, you know, to me, the Steelers are the better team. And then you look at the numbers and everything go through it, they were. And then I watched the Packers play the Bears twice up in Green Bay, and then I rewatched the other game, and it just, the Packers are a team, they're just more talented, they can make more plays. And the Bears and the Jets, to me, after really studying it, are very similar teams. They need to win with vertical field position. They need to control the special teams, and they need to make plays with their defense and cut the field down so their offense can score. And I thought those teams would fall short in the conference championships.
So, but on the flip side, I feel like if that Jets game had lasted one more quarter, they win by 10.
Well, you know, I talked to Mike Tomlin after the game, and that's kind of what he said. He said, I said, hey, it was a great decision to go for it. He said, hey, I got number 7 over there. I'm going to go with him. And he said, I needed to keep my defense off the field. And I think he made the right decision at that point. I mean, he knew it too. His defense was tired. The Jets had finally gotten into a rhythm. They were protecting really well. And Sanchez really stepped up his game. He was throwing the ball well, and he made plays. I think the one play, if you go back and look at the whole shape of the game, Braylon Edwards putting his foot out of bounds really hurt him on that drive. They had to punt it back, and it got the Steelers some ball because their momentum was really picking up.
Well, you love play calling and the perils of play calling and how the wrong couple calls can just kill a team. How did you feel down 24-10, first and goal from like the 4, about that sequence?
Well, I think they were going a little too slow. I didn't think there was enough sense of urgency because you're down 2 touchdowns and you had to get the ball back. I keep thinking they think their defense is just going to stone people, and Ben was very good on third down. He sensed the moment of the game, so I think I would have liked the pace to go much quicker like they did the next time they were down there. And then, they tried to run it. They thought they could run it in, and they couldn't. And then when they got stopped, they threw it, and then they came back and ran it again. So it was kind of like a little bit, okay, you stop that, let me do this. It was given back and forth, and it was really difficult. I think their attitude was, look, even if we don't get it, we got them backed up, we'll get good field position.
Don't teams have like 2 or 3 plays that they're just sitting on, knowing that they're going to work? Like, for instance, the next time down, they ran that pick play that went right to Cotchery for the touchdown. It seems like you should have 2 or 3 of those plays. Like Seattle ran that play when John Carlson fell down. Right.
Well, that's what you do when you're down there. You go to your 2-point plays. You probably have 4 2-point plays you've had all year that you want to run against each team, and that's when you call them right there. And you put your 2-point play in because essentially down there you need to score, you need to convert, you need your best plays, and they're always your 2-point plays. They're not your regular offense, and I think that's really what you're saying is go to your 2-point plays, you have them right there, put them in, and if you get in a 2-point situation again, which you probably won't because the score's not set up that way, you were in a 14-point game, it was a 7-7, you don't need your 2-point plays. Go ahead and use them because those are your best plays. You know you can score with those.
I mean, I like how it worked out because Steelers stoned them and they deserved to win the game, but I think if the Jets had scored there, I think they would have won the game.
If the Jets, we'd have been in overtime, and then they could have won. But I'll tell you this, though, Bill. Ben Roethlisberger, his stats lie to you. He played really well, and his numbers looked terrible.
Yep.
But what he did was he was incredible, and the Jets, the Achilles heel for the Jets was they didn't control him in the pocket, and he got out of the pocket in the most critical times. The second down play, he throws to Heath Miller, he gets out of the pocket. The third down play, he throws to Antonio Brown, he gets out of the pocket. Those are what kill the Jets, and that's what's always going to kill the Jets if they don't keep a guy in the pocket because it separates the defense, and their coverage, which was excellent for most of the game, can't stay with guys when the quarterback's out of the pocket.
I was going to ask you about this. I'm glad you brought this up. It seems to me that Roethlisberger and Rodgers and Cutler to a lesser extent till he got hurt, the NFL seems to be moving in a direction where your quarterback 3 or 4 times a game needs to create a play, to take a play that wasn't going to work or a sack that was going to happen or something and turn something out of nothing. And I look at Brady and I look at Manning, and as they get older, especially Brady, I don't think he has the ability to do that anymore.
I think it's very difficult to dial up without some movement in the quarterback, and really it helps the defense. See, what happened yesterday, even though they played man coverage on the Steelers, and that allowed Ben Roethlisberger to run around. I mean, they needed to treat Ben Roethlisberger like Michael Vick.
Yeah.
You needed to spy on him. You needed to create a situation where he wasn't escaping from you in the pocket. And those third down runs that he had were so critical. 3rd and 12, he runs for the first down. I mean, that's what I said. I think when you're watching the game, you get the sense that, okay, yeah, probably if the Jets would have got the ball back and they scored down there, we would have made an overtime. But I just keep thinking that Ben was going to make a play that he had to make. And the one play he had a chance to make to put the game away was the interception that he throws down there to Brody Poole.
Yep.
I mean, that throw there, if he throws it to the pylon, it's a touchdown, game's over.
And same thing with Rodgers in the Bears game. That game is over if they score up 14-0. He throws the pick to Urlacher. You feel like there's a changing of the guard here with the quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think you have to have a movement in your quarterback. I mean, you got to be able to. And I'm not saying he's got to be able to run. He's got to run the option or run the ridiculous stuff that's going on in college football, the read option. But he's got to be able to escape and create some plays that break down on your own and make the play out of the pocket. I mean, really, you have to treat Ben. When you pass rush against Ben Roethlisberger, you have to treat it like a punt, like a field goal. You got to stay in your lane and just keep him in front of you, because I'm not sure he's going to be as effective if you do that. If you let him out of the pocket, then this is when he's at his best play, because you're playing sandlot ball and he'll throw it up the field.
How much you were there yesterday, and it's so tough to gauge how important it is, but how much a home field had to do with Pittsburgh winning that game yesterday?
I think an awful lot. You know, it's a sea of jerseys in Pittsburgh. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, they come in from everywhere. It's a 2-hour wait in the security line to get through out of there this morning. It's just a sea of jerseys, and they were loud. They were into the game. And I think really it wasn't so much their crowd, but I think the Jets, the volume of the Jets having to play the Triple Crown, having to beat Brady, having to beat Manning, and then having to beat Roethlisberger, I think that's way too much to overcome no matter how good of a team you are. The Jets, if they're going to get to the Super Bowl, they're going to have to do it with a bye and play 2 games.
So the Steelers, I mean, you could basically say they escaped 2 weeks in a row against Baltimore and the Jets in games that had a couple plays gone differently, and maybe they lose. Now they're going to a neutral stadium. How confident do you feel in the Steelers being good?
I think the Steelers are always going to be good because they have a blue quarterback who makes plays, and these receivers are getting better. And then I think Mendenhall might have proved yesterday he's a blue running back. I mean,
yeah.
He ran with style and power that I really hadn't seen him run with, and I kept expecting him. He's going to fumble, the ball's going to come out, but he did things that were really sensational with the ball in his hands, and that makes it now. If they don't have Pouncey, then basically this Steeler team will be playing with a lot of guys that in the offensive line that they would have never imagined would have been in their offensive line, and I think that can be the Achilles heel when they play Green Bay.
Dome, we always forget, like, certain teams look different in a dome. We saw that last week with the Packers in Atlanta. I think they're going to be just in Dallas. Dallas is in a dome, but it's basically indoors. And Pittsburgh, in that stadium with those receivers running around, I mean, they might be better. They might feel like a different team than we watched the last 2 weeks, right?
No question. Those receivers are fast. I mean, Mike Wallace is fast, and he had Cromartie. Cromartie was grabbing and tugging and pulling. I mean, they didn't call it late in the game, but really watching it from the press box, he was really grabbing and pulling onto him. It was a challenge for him to cover him. And this guy's really good, and I mean, Cromartie did a good job on him yesterday, but it's going to be tough to do that for 70 plays in a game all the time, especially on perfect surface.
So which secondary do you think will struggle more in that situation?
I think Pittsburgh's secondary is going to struggle. I think what we saw yesterday, the way the Jets finally got into the rhythm, and what the Jets did, and credit Bill Callahan, their offensive line coach, they did a great job blocking all the blitzes.
Yeah.
And once you block all the blitzes, there's a lot of windows to throw the ball in. And in the last 2 weeks, Troy Polamalu hasn't really made his presence felt at all. He hasn't been near the ball. Now, I think on the one ball before the fourth down call, he's either going to intercept the one Woodley knocks down, or he's going to knock the receiver out. I mean, there's a play to be made there. But for the most part, I mean, he hasn't really been the dominant defensive player that we're used to seeing.
No, he's hurt. And, when it came down to it, that's why I took the points in that game, because, I mean, this is before Pouncey. If you told me Pouncey was going to get hurt in the first quarter, I would have thought there was no way in hell the Steelers are going to win. Like, at some point, there's a tipping point with injuries on an offensive line. I don't know how they held it together for 4 quarters.
I mean, the quarterback holds it together because when the line breaks down, he gets out of the pocket, and then he's at his best.
Right.
I mean, that's how they do it. I mean, look, Jonathan Scott's their left tackle. He'd been cut from several teams. I mean, can they win with Willie Cologne's on IR and Max Starks is on IR? They're winning with 2 backup tackles, not 2 starting not 2 guys, not just 1.
So, do you cover the game for NFL Network?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
What was the general feeling about that Jets team? Missed opportunity, or did they go as far as they should have gone?
Well, I think in talking to the people before the game, the coaches on the Pittsburgh, they were really confident. They felt really good about the game. They felt kind of the way I did after I went back and watched the tape. They felt like they were the better team, and they felt like if they could control the kicking game and not make an interception or turn the ball over. They felt like they could win the game. They were really confident going in. They were very they were very positive about how good the Jets were, but they just felt they were the better team, and they don't feel that way always about. They feel like New England has their number. New England kind of knows their scheme and kind of plays them better. I think they felt very comfortable playing the Jets, and they were not intimidated at all. They thought they could run the ball on the Jets, and they thought they could make plays in the passing game.
Is that Jets team, they were kind of built to win this year. Can that nucleus survive 12 more months?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think the fundamental question the Jets have to ask this offseason is which player do we feel good about giving the money to, and we feel like he'll be the same player he was before we gave him the money. And I think that's the real hard question you have to answer. Would you give it to Cromartie? Is he going to come back and play the way he did this year and give us the same effort? Would you give it to Braylon Edwards, or would you give it to Santonio Holmes? Now, obviously, to me, the order would be Holmes, Edwards, and Cromartie, but you have to take into account Holmes test positive one more time. He could be out for a year. You've got some issues off the field there, so you've got to concern yourself there. Braylon Edwards, is he going to go in the tank? What is he going to do? And then we haven't talked about David Harris. You've got to still re-sign him. And then you need a front seven player. I mean, the Jets need a blue-chip player that can rush the passer. I mean, Jason Taylor wasn't the guy, and really Calvin Pace wasn't the guy this year, and Brian Thomas wasn't the guy. So I think when you look at the Jets and you say, how did we lose? We lost because we didn't really have a dominant defensive front guy who could really rush the passer when we didn't have to blitz.
Except for Sean Ellis in that one Patriots game.
But that was more coverage sacks.
No, I know. I'm still a little sore from the game.
I'm sure the Patriots are even more sore after they watched the game yesterday because, the Patriots run the ball extremely well against the Jets. I think it gave some sense of comfort to the Steelers that they could run the ball. If they didn't have that New England game where they watched New England run the ball, I'm not sure the Steelers would have thought about running.
So you are sold that these are the two best teams in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they were the two best teams on paper. They were the two best teams, and I thought that after analyzing it, they were the two best teams. And it's funny, just talking to the way the teams thought about each other. They thought the Green Bay thought they were the better team, and clearly Pittsburgh thought they were the better team.
Walk me through this whole Pittsburgh offensive line disaster as it relates to the Packers defensive line.
Well, that's going to be the challenge because there is blue players on the Packers defensive line. Cullen Jenkins is an outstanding player, and B.J. Raji is an outstanding player. Now you have to deal with Clay Matthews on the outside, and you've got to deal with Eric Walden on the other side. So this is a real challenge. This front seven for Green Bay is much better than the front seven for the Jets. Extremely, extremely better. And I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on the Steelers' offensive line. Now, look, they've rise to the occasion here because they've been able to do it in the last couple of weeks. They blocked the Jets and they blocked people they had to. They Baltimore, Nagata and Suggs. You don't get tougher than that. So they've proven they could do it. But I think this is going to be a true challenge with not a lot of easy access passes. I mean, the Packers make you work for every throw.
So if Pittsburgh wins this game, Roethlisberger now moves to a whole other level. Third Super Bowl. He didn't play very well in the first Super Bowl, but still 3 titles, got them there each time. He would be 3-0 in the Super Bowl, which is pretty impressive. He's the same age, I think, as Brady was after he won his third Super Bowl. He's never going to be a guy who throws for 4,500 yards in a year. But if you had to pick a quarterback right now for one game, would he be the guy?
Yeah, because he does. Even when his stats are ugly, he wins. I mean, the play he makes, the lateral he does to Rashard Mendenhall, the play he makes on 3rd and 12, the scramble. I mean, he does the things he has to do to help his team win, and I think he clearly is a top echelon quarterback before that game, and he keeps proving. And when your quarterback plays well and his numbers look bad, then you got to take your hat off and salute him.
And now we know why they didn't trade him.
Yeah, he's irreplaceable. I mean, you can't get a guy that good. I mean, the one thing that the playoffs have taught every team in the league is if you don't have a blue-level quarterback, you're not going to get to the next level.
Do you think that there are a couple teams out there that maybe are kicking themselves a little bit? Maybe they could get Godfather offered Pittsburgh last spring when the fans were so against him, and I felt like he could have been had with the right offer. Am I wrong?
I don't think so. I never got the sense from that. The one thing the Rooney family has never done is panic. They've always been very, very deliberate in their thought process, whether it relates to coaches or even players. I think they were embarrassed. I think Santonio Holmes was a result of the Ben Roethlisberger incident. They were going to clean up the locker room. They were going to make it a much, much friendlier locker room, much team-oriented locker room, and that really was what they did. I don't think they were going to react. They knew what they had in Ben. They knew he was a guy you couldn't replace. I mean, just what Tomlin told me after the game. Hey, look, I got 7. I had to give him a chance to win the game.
Yeah.
And I think when you have that mentality, you're just not going to give up that easily on him. I think this was clearly the last chance saloon, though. There's no question. He was not going to come out of this one.
And it seems like he's in a little bit different of a place personally.
And I talked to him after the game. He was great. And last year he was unapproachable. This year he was great. You know, I went over and talked to him about the game and about the throws, and he was tremendous, and he was very complimentary about his teammates, and he was really a good teammate. And you could see the other players in the locker room enjoyed him, whereas last year you felt discomfort in that locker room. There was a separation. And I think now they finally have team unity. You can see it with the coaching staff, and you could see it with the players.
Yeah, I like NFL films. They'll have some of the stuff in Inside the NFL or the sounds of the game on NFL Network, different shows. And I do think there's stuff you can learn from when they have different guys mic'd and the way people are interacting. And there were a couple Roethlisberger moments this year. We're watching it. Like, I remember somebody screwed up in the offense that Tomlin and Roethlisberger were talking about. It was a couple weeks ago. And Roethlisberger says, "Don't worry, I got him. I'll talk to him." And Tomlin's like, "All right, you talk to him." It just felt like it was okay. Whatever happened last spring and all the tension, all the turmoil, all that stuff, felt like now that it's his team again.
Yeah, he's got the team clearly. They know he's the guy, and the confidence they have with him, obviously he's earned. And he's easy to like this year, whereas last year I'm not sure he was easy to like. Well,
how do you? I mean, this isn't really a football X's and O's question, but these next 2 weeks are going to be a referendum on his character and what happened in that bathroom at the Velvet Elvis or whatever that place was called, and he's going to be under the microscope even more than he was last summer. How does that affect the team?
Well, I think they'll rally around it, and I think because he's taken responsibility for his actions, which I don't think he's done in the past. And so when you do that, you build a strong base, and you build the ability, and people will rally around you. And together, that team's going to go down there and handle the incident, because the incident's why they're here. Not the alleged rape and the charges, but the bonding of the team, the things that brought this team together is why they're in the Super Bowl. And I think that those things are going to just transcend as they're together for the week, and it'll help even build this team even closer. They'll rally around him. I mean, obviously, because he's taken responsibility for his actions, he's not divorced himself of the incident, and he's tried to help himself. And I think he obviously needed a second chance, and he got it.
So is it fair to say Packers more talented? It's weird to call them healthier, but most of their injuries happen a lot earlier in the season. So this is the team that they've had for 2 months. But a little more inexperienced on the coaching side and the strategy side. And then you have Pittsburgh, less healthy, a little more turmoil, a little closer together from all the stuff that's happened to them, and a coaching staff that I would have to give the edge to. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Rick Gosselin of the Dallas Morning News does a great job of breaking down the injuries of how many games starters missed for your season. For example, Willie Colon missed 16 games. He was a starter at right tackle. And the Packers had 91 games missed by starters.
Oof.
And the Steelers had 51 games missed by starters, which is incredible. So, yeah, I mean, these two teams have lost a lot of players, and I think their talent level has been depleted, but other guys have come in and filled in for them. But when you look at it on the surface, I say you're absolutely correct. I think what Green Bay does, which drives you crazy, is they give you a chance to stay in the game. They don't have the killer instinct to put you away. Now, they did in Atlanta, but they haven't really all through the season. I was at the Washington game. They were better than Washington. They should have blown Washington out of the building that day, and they lost the game. They kept Washington around. They couldn't score on the 1-yard line. They did the same thing with Chicago earlier in the year. They had all those penalties. So there's something about Green Bay that keeps you in the game, and Pittsburgh's so mentally tough that they'll hang around. They're not going to go right quietly.
You're not really allowed to talk about lines, but this is only the 4th or 5th Super Bowl ever where the line was less than 3. Does that feel right for you, that people feel like this is a field goal game?
I think this game is hard to really break down from an X's and O's standpoint, because there is an underlying factor here. I mean, when you just look at it, man for man, probably Green Bay has more talented players on their team, but Pittsburgh just understands how to play like a team, and they play well. And then Green Bay hasn't really put a team away. I mean, Green Bay looks beautiful moving down the field. Those first couple drives against the Bears, you thought this game was going to be over quickly. But then they end up being 2 for 13 on third down. They don't really have a way to put the team away. Both teams, their depth in the special teams is not very good. They don't make enough plays in the kicking game. So I think when you basically boil it down, the Packers' lack of killer instincts, the Steelers' toughness, it really is an even game when you break it down.
Last question, the Cutler thing's been a big thing last 24 hours, and, it seems like he has a torn MCL, and, I mean,
I think it's ridiculous. I think, first of all, the guy's got toughness. I mean, none of the Bears players are coming out attacking him, which is the first thing you would look for. And I say not attacking him, I mean raising an eyebrow, not saying anything, just kind of quietly going away and just shrugging their shoulders. So clearly the Bears players, Chris Harris, Olin Kreutz, they've come out to his defense. And let me say this further. You don't run the option in the Southeast Conference if you're not tough. Okay, you're not going to be able to do that if you lack toughness or you're not competing. And I think it's kind of unfair what they're doing to Jay right now. I mean, it's created its own story. Whether he has a torn MCL or not, Olin Kreutz was quoted as saying his leg was wobbling in the huddle and they knew they were in trouble. I think that's really taken the focus off the Bears because they had to watch Todd Collins every day in practice, and they still went with him as the backup quarterback. Now, if you and I were watching Todd Collins every day in practice, wouldn't we look at each other and say, we better get a quarterback?
Well, I just remember when he came into that Giants game, because I went to that game. As soon as we saw him, the game was over. I think we left after 3 quarters. Todd Collins is in. They're not going to win.
Yeah,
so it's a great question.
I think that, to me, is the focus of what happened in the game. Hey, the guy got hurt. He couldn't plant off his leg. He's got a bad offensive line in front of him, and if he doesn't have his foot quickness and his movement, he was going to get hurt even further. I just don't think you can question a player's toughness, especially on injury, and especially without knowing how severe the injury is, especially a guy who's demonstrated he does have toughness.
If he doesn't get hurt, who wins that game?
Again, it kind of went. I thought the Packers should win the game. And ultimately, when you knock out the opposing team's starting quarterback, there is a way you let down a little bit and you kind of let your guard down and kind of ease up a little bit, and then the Packers got it back. I still think the Packers win the game if he plays, but I think the Bears were like the Jets. They were starting to get some momentum. They were starting to get a feel. The Packers were getting tired of the defensive line. The rush wasn't creating as much pressure. So I think the Bears were starting to come back into the game. I don't know if they would have had enough to win it, but they were getting there.
All right. So who has more fans at this game, Pittsburgh or Green Bay?
Oh, I think I don't know how that. This is going to be just an invasion of black and gold and green and yellow. I've never seen anything like Cheeseheads or Packer fans or Bears fans and Steelers fans. It's just incredible, and they all wear their jerseys to the game. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And they go from generational jerseys too. There's Rocky Blyer, there's Franco Harris's, there's Jack Lambert's, and then there's Hines Ward. So it's really amazing. So this is what makes the pageantry of the game. And let me say this: the other thing that made my weekend was watching Mr. Rooney, the owner of the Steelers, however old he is, the ambassador to Ireland. He went around to every player's locker. He shook their hands. He thanked them for their contributions, and it wasn't just thank you and move to the next locker. He stayed in that locker room for almost 2 hours. It was incredible. It was one of the best experiences of my life.
Wow. Listen, I always felt Pittsburgh and Milwaukee were the 2 most underrated American cities. I've said that over and over again. I love going to both of those places. Here's what's at stake for the Super Bowl other than the championship. Whoever wins this game will be the city that I mention first when I make my most underrated American cities argument. So if the Steelers win, I will say Pittsburgh, then Milwaukee. If Green Bay wins, I will say Milwaukee, then Pittsburgh. So basically first place is at stake for the Bill Simmons most underrated city sweepstakes.
Well, the one thing if you go into any bar in either one of those towns, regardless of the smoking rules in the United States, your clothes are coming out smelling like smoke.
My wife and I had a serious discussion about 3 years ago about moving to Milwaukee. I'm not even kidding. I was like, I love it there. I get Buck season tickets. It'd be great. And then it just came down to the weather thing. But I love Wisconsin. And I think the thing that those 2 cities share in common is that the football team just means an inordinate amount to everybody. Yeah. There's only a couple cities like that. I think Boston is like that with their teams. And it's an East Coast thing, and it's a college atmosphere in both cities. I mean, it really is. I mean, there's this passion for the Steelers. I was in the cab. I wasn't in the cab 5 minutes, and the cab driver, Super G, told me it'll be over with at halftime. I mean, he'd been to everything. It's just remarkable how they love their team, and I think it's a college atmosphere. In Milwaukee, if you'd have got a home on Lake Michigan, you might have been able to stand the winters. They're beautiful. It's a beautiful city. And I think cold weather plays a little bit into it. You know, I was talking to my dad on like Thursday, and I was like, "You over the Pats game yet?" And he's like, "No, there's 2 feet of snow on the ground. I just spent 2 days shoveling, and I still can't believe we lost." And it's all I think about. Like, you know, if you have a tough loss in Los Angeles, you're gonna rally back in 48 hours or wherever, Phoenix.
There's enough scenery to go see in L.A. to get your mind off of it. No, I get the point. But, you know, those games stick with you forever, you know, and that's why it's so difficult back east, because watching that game, being there, as cold as it was, I actually really think the Super Bowl in New York is going to be a great experience. I didn't think that until I was there in Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Really?
Yeah, because I know it was cold. I know it was not good for the fans now, but it just felt like football. It was kind of great. The lights were out. That the stadium was filled with Steeler jerseys. It was really a wonderful setting. And I thought, you know, with New York City being such a great city and then the Super Bowl in New York, I think that could be just an awesome experience. I know it's going to be cold. Maybe it won't be 0 degree, hopefully, like it was in Pittsburgh yesterday. But I think to me, it sold me on the winter experience Super Bowl.
My only counter to that would be it's a lot easier to sit in a freezing cold stadium if it's your team. If it's
and I think
the Super Bowl has so many corporate people who don't care either way, I don't know.
That would be the challenge. But, you know, look, Lamar Hunt had the greatest idea of all time. He wanted to take the conference championship game and make it a Final Four weekend. And I think these games are so big now. He wanted to pull the games out of the home stadium and put them somewhere else, which fans would have gone berserk of because they want to watch their team. But I think these games were so big, they deserve their own day. I mean, Saturday should have been the AFC, Sunday should be the NFC, reverse it every year. They really needed their own day. The doubleheader of football was great, but it's just so much to take in after just one day, for one day.
Wait a second. So you're saying these 2 games would have been in Miami, and the games would have been Saturday and Sunday. And
Lamar Hunt, the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, always had a proposal. He wanted to make it the Final Four weekend of mini Super Bowls, basically. So if the Miami didn't get a Super Bowl, they would get a conference championship weekend. They'd host it on Saturday and Sunday. It would be played in nice weather and perfect conditions and make it just basically a Super Bowl. Now, the home team would get 70% of the tickets. The visiting team would get 30%. However, it's broken down. But it would be like a fans would travel to a bowl game for their teams. They would come and support them, and because a lot of those fans can't get Super Bowl tickets.
Yeah, I don't like that idea.
No.
I'm a big, I love big ideas like that, but I do feel like you play the whole year to be able to host that game in your stadium, and that's part of the advantage of why you would care about the whole season. You know what I mean?
And I think that's the fly in the ointment. I think really, but I do think that the game should be played whether in their own stadium, but they should have their own day to it, really, because it's too good. It's just too good.
That's pretty interesting. Well, what if we went Sunday night for the first one and then Monday night for the second one?
Yeah, because you got 2 weeks for the Super Bowl, so you got plenty of time to catch it. So, you know, whatever the TV ratings would be the best. I just think that's too good to pass up. I just think it's a great, and it's hard because, you know, CBS's pregame show, they're the late game, it gets covered up. Nobody gets to watch that because they're watching the other game. It's kind of really ridiculous. It should have its own platform and its own way of exposing itself.
Yeah, and I almost feel like that Bears-Packers game, I could have used a day to just digest everything I saw and then move on to the next game.
Yeah, you just get overwhelmed with the volume of the game. I mean, you didn't really have a chance. Like for example, I thought Cutler early in the game, and everybody's questioning his toughness. I thought early in the game when he was in the end zone, I thought that he got hit so hard I thought he had a concussion.
Yeah.
And you know, and now that's kind of gotten lost in the fact that because his knee's not tough enough. I mean, he took that hit he took that hit. It was so hard. He got up that I knew the next play was going to be a run because I don't think he knew where he was.
And the other thing about those 2 games yesterday is they overshadowed the tsunami warning on Hawaii 5-0, which
at least you pay attention to the commercials and the plugs.
Oh, I ended up watching it. It was great.
Was it good?
The only thing is, it ended up being a fake tsunami, and somebody was generating a fake signal. I kind of was fired up for the tsunami.
What was it? Did they film that show in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Wow.
They do. With James Caan's son.
Wow, that's
James Caan's son carries the thing. Anyway, I like that idea. Maybe I'll start pushing for a Sunday night, Monday night combo. Because if you have the 2 weeks, I think that's great. Anyway, Mike Lombardi, we will talk to you Next Monday, you're going to bunker down, watch these tapes, tell us what's going on, and you'll have your pick on Monday.
I'm going over the films right now. All right, Bill, thanks.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.
That's it for the BS Report. We have some fun stuff coming up this week. Check us out on ESPN.com or iTunes. Until then.
So I get to sign off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.